Hi, everybody.
Hello, I'm Ryan.
I'm Bethany.
And we are Ryan and Bethany Board Game Reviews.
And today we're going to be talking about Imposter Kings, and this is published by Imposter Games. Coincidence? I think not.
I think so.
What?
All right, so let me give you a little bit of the background of this game. All right, so there's this king, right? And he's having all these visions and dreams. And in these dreams, there's these 3 clones of himself that are like coming after him to kill him. And there's all these different scenarios. And it's kind of like in Marvel's Infinity War where like Doctor Strange has like, he can kind of see like a million different like versions of the future. And only in one of them does the good guys win.
Is his new movie coming out next year?
I sure hope so.
I hope so too.
But it's kind of like that. This king's having a ton of different visions of a ton of different timelines that might be happening in the future. Only one of them ends with him not dying by the way of these 3 clones. Super crazy theme, right? And to be honest, it doesn't really play out that well in the game. But what it does explain is how these different cards come out. So all the players are playing cards on the table. They all symbolize, different actions and characters that might be coming in and out of the stories. And so that's how it explains why each time you play, everything's in a different order and stuff like that. So it's kind of fun in that regard. Let me show you how it looks on the table. All right, the Imposter Kings is set up a little differently based off the number of players. So we have all these different player aids that are going to help us out. This one's going to tell us exactly which cards to put in based off the number of players. We're going to set up here for the 2-player standard game. So this kind of gives us a little overview of what all the different cards that are in play can do. Let's say we don't have a King's Hand in our hand. We can still look at this chart to see what might be happening to us. So that's nice to have. We also have a scoring guide. Based off of the number of players, scorings could be slightly differently. So this is going to help us out with that as well. We've got some objectives here, and as well as the turn order, which is going to be helpful. And some key words. Some of these words are a little hard to know what they're going to do based off of just hearing them. Like disgrace cards just mean that those are the face down cards that are in the court. And the court is the big line of cards we're about to make. So having this in front of us is going to help us play the game. We're also going to start off with a king and a true king. Based off the number of players, you want to have as many kings as you have players, as long as one of them is the true king. Basically, it's just the first player. You're going to shuffle that up, and you put them out there. The true king gets to choose who the first player is going to be each round. For the standard game for the 2 players, every player is going to get 8 cards. There's going to be 2 cards left over. One card is going to be face up so that everyone can see it. One card's face down, just because those cards are out of the round. However, it just kind of helps with the random ability of the game. You can't really predict what everybody has in their hands hidden. The players are also going to choose a card randomly from their hand to be the successor to their king. I'm not going to actually do that, but just symbolically show that. Also, each player is going to not randomly, but they're going to choose a card from their hand, and they're going to get rid of it. And again, not everybody knows what the other players are doing, so there's a little bit of intrigue going on there. All right, so now the game is actually going to begin. In our first round, the true king, let's say they chose themselves to go first. They can play any card they want from their hand. However, it's basically the next person has to play either the same value or equal value card, or have some special abilities that might come into play as well. All right, so for instance, the judge, they might start with the 5. This one says, guess a card name in an opponent's hand. If correct, you may play a card to your antechamber with a base value of 2 or more. An antechamber is kind of a cool ability. Basically, it means you can play any card you want down in front of you, but when it comes time to play your next round, you have to play that card. But regardless of its value, you can still play it. So, for instance, let's say somebody else, our opponent comes out with a 7. Normally, we'd have to play a 7 or higher above it. If we had something in the antechamber, let's say this card here is Zealot. This is a 3. We normally wouldn't be able to play this, but because it's in our antechamber, we have to play it. That's a nice way to kind of play some lower cards on top of higher cards. There are cards like the Soldier. The Soldier is a base value of 5. However, it says, say a card name. If any opponent has that card in their hand, this card gains 2 value while on the throne. And you can discard or disgrace up to 3 cards in the court, meaning flip them over. So if you were able to correctly guess, let's say someone has a princess in their hand, then this now becomes a 7 when it's in a stack like that. Players are going to go back and forth playing cards into the court, this big lineup of cards here, until one player can no longer play any cards, or there's an assassin card. Right now it just happens to be our accused cards out of the round. But if someone plays the assassin card, or if someone is unable to play, that player loses the round. Like maybe over here someone played the princess, which is a 9, and what's left from their hand was 1s and 4s or something like that, which cannot be played on top of a 9. Therefore, they couldn't play, and they're out of the round. One way to stall a little bit, however, is we have our successor card over here. So let's say we can choose to, we really want this card that we set aside at the beginning of the game. We can, I guess our king can die, and we can have our successor go into our hand. First of all, it takes up a turn, and second of all, now we have an additional card that we can use. That's a nice way to stall the game and potentially help yourself out. However, this assassin card this is when that comes into play. If that is in someone's hand when someone does their successor, drawing that into their hand, it says it's a reaction card, so you play it from your hand rather than playing it, to the stack. It says if another player flips their king, you may reveal this card from your hand to prevent their king's power and cause them to lose this round. If you are the winner of the round, you are going to get 1 point. If your opponent still has any cards left in their hands or their successor is still out there, you are going to get a point for that. You also might get an additional extra point if your king has not been flipped over yet. So you get a chance to win between 1 and 3 points each round. Now you're going to play several rounds, going back and forth. Whoever the loser is of the round becomes the true king, and therefore they choose who goes first that round. And you're going to play until one player has 7 points. At that point, they are declared the winner.
I really liked the card art in this game. And when you have a game that is just cards, you better make sure those cards are enjoyable to look at. And they did that. All the different people, I could see these people's personalities come out on the card art. It was good. It was really good. It brought you into the theme of the game. Not necessarily when it came to playing, but you were interested in what was going to happen and why a certain character was going to do a certain thing. And I kind of just wanted to read a story about all of them. But that's a different thing. But the art made me do that. It was the art. It wasn't the name. It wasn't the text. It was the art that was I want to know what else this person's doing.
Yeah. I like how there's a lot of different strategy within these cards that you could use. So every time we played, I had a different mindset each time. Like this time, I'm going to go in there with a mindset of just trying to play high cards that blocks their cards from being able to be played. Or maybe this time I'll go in there with the idea of just really I can't remember what it's called when you flip things over. Whatever it is.
Disgrace?
Disgrace. Yeah, I'm going to try a disgrace strategy this time. Or this time I'm going to try a strategy of really messing with their hand. Or so every time I played, there's a different strategy that I tried, and they were all completely viable. And so I like that there was, within these few, there's only 33 cards in the deck, and some of them were duplicates. So
yeah.
And you don't use them all based on the number of players. So you're only using a certain amount of cards, and you're able to do so much with those.
I thought it was really cool how sometimes, so the cards, they're numbered and you have to place them in order, but there's multiple numbers of this, there's multiple of the same number, but they're different cards, so they do different things. And I haven't seen that yet in a game like this. And so I thought that was fun and it was interesting and it made it kind of more exciting knowing that was out there. And also, I'm pretty sure it helped with the balance of being able to play as much as you could before you were kind of screwed out of anything.
All right, so there's multiple ways to play. So there's usually a quick version of the play and then a standard version of the play. And on top of that, for each player count, there was a different setup.
Yeah.
It was really nice. There's a player aids that helped you set up each and every one of those scenarios. And on top of that, some kind of extra rules and some of the keyword glossary, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
All right there in those player aids, which was really helpful because even within different player counts, it's a different scenario, different setup. So those player aids are very helpful.
So I did have a little bit of issue with the rule book. There was by chance, a very specific interaction that happened that we couldn't figure out turn order. I mean, we could figure out turn order, but we didn't know how that affected everything. And I think that's something that as this game gets into more people's hands and people update things on the Board Game Geek page, that will resolve itself. But it was that's my little nitpick.
Yeah, I agree. The rulebook was not my favorite either. I think some of that had to do with, because there was different formats of the game, the 2-player version or the 3 version or the 4-player, with the quick version of the play, with the standard version of the game. It just felt like you were kind of jumping back and forth all over the place to try to learn what you needed to learn.
Yeah.
There was a different interaction that I was trying to figure out, and I had to bounce all over, because there's just rules that teach the game up front, and then there's the rules that teach the 2-player quick play, and then it wasn't there and it wasn't there, and it was in the 2-player standard version of the game where I ended up finding it or whatever it was, and it's kind of I felt like I was bouncing around a lot trying to get those. But again, like you mentioned, there's so many different interactions that it'd be hard to have a whole giant book of how every single card interacts with every single other card. So that was the rulebook wasn't my favorite, but it ended up being okay. And really, what it amounted to is it's still very compelling. It was just a really compelling game, super weird theme, but an interesting theme, and I enjoy interesting themes in a game. And it felt like there's certain games I like that it felt like this game took some of the best parts of them. So, like, for instance, Love Letter. This had some kind of similarities with Love Letter. I love Love Letter. Yeah. And this game kind of took some aspects of that. Or a game like Citadels had some aspects of Citadels and brought some of that in. There's a game called Eminent Domain Battle Cruisers that we like. It's a small little game that it brought some of those aspects in that we really enjoyed. And so it just felt like there's some really cool concepts going on in here. Some really fun interactions. I liked it.
Yeah, I enjoyed this game a lot as well. I thought it was really fun. I liked playing it. I liked how, there's actually a lot of strategy, but there's also a lot of tactics in this. Like, you have to pivot a lot in this game. And it's not crazy random pivot because you kind of know what's out there, but you have to think, and you have to think in 4 different directions. And so I really liked that. This is a first game for this company, and because of how I feel like they did this game pretty well, I'm kind of excited to see what else they're going to come up with. So you better come up with other things. That's what I have to say to you.
That's like a threat.
More games! Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you can see our videos as they come out. Until then, you can find us on Facebook. We're Ryan Bethany Board Game Reviews. On Twitter, we're Ryan and Bethany 1. And on Instagram, we are Ryan and Bethany.
All right, you guys, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye.